Hey there, I'm Mary.
And I'm Lindsay.
And you are listening to What Comes Up, a podcast where we have open and honest conversations from the heart about what comes up in our day-to-day and within our lives. Thank you so much for tuning in. A little dehydrated, parched.
Yeah.
Glad you're having
Welcome
some
back
water.
to the What Comes Up podcast.
Woohoo! Bwah, bwah, bwah.
We're feeling a little goofy today. I think
Yeah.
we're a little bit tired.
We sure are. We've been hitting the pavement hard.
We've been going hard.
Really hard.
Anywho. So, I'm thinking about what we want to talk about today. Do you want to talk about what we discussed was it yesterday at breakfast?
Was that yesterday or was it Sunday?
I'm not
It
sure.
was within the last
couple days.
24 to 72 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can talk about that.
So we'll talk about kind of how it looked like for you growing up and a little bit of myself. I don't have like a big story about it, but about bullying.
Yeah, somehow bullying got. Yeah. We were just chatting at breakfast, you know.
I can't remember. Was it about the recent shooting, maybe?
I don't know. I don't know if we were that.
I think we were talking about how, like, kids, like, I think I had said something, how it gets to that point, how it got so intense that it caused somebody to want to go to that place.
Yeah.
You know, of ending someone else's life.
Or their own, because we were also talking about that.
Like it
can get... Kids can be bullied so badly.
Right.
And we don't know if that's what happened in this scenario. We were just kind of... This is such a tragedy that this continues to happen, and it's
terrible.
I think I read a thing the other day that said it was the 218th time that a gun was fired in a classroom this year, and I just am so sick and angry that this continues to happen. It shouldn't.
Yeah, please comment if you're a parent. I'd like to know how you're feeling right now as your kids are getting back to school. I'd be so curious. Yeah. I mean, we're not parents, but I can imagine if we did have kids, I would be really stressed out.
Yeah, concerned.
Yeah.
Worried.
I think it's just probably, like, I like to know, seriously, like, if you comment, like, is it in the back of your mind? Like, when parents send their kids off to school, is it something that they're actively thinking about?
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know.
Yeah.
Which is really sad.
So sad. It's just like, what a... the words that I have for it are so strong. It's so sickening. Tragic isn't even, it's been beyond tragedy right now because it is so commonplace in this country, and it makes me ill and it makes me furious. We were talking about all the different ways, besides the obvious, which is access to firearms and incredible amounts of ammunition that can do damage, a lot of damage very quickly, and we have seen that over and over and over and over and over again. And so, since that doesn't seem to be something that people who have the power to change want to do anything about, we were like, what are the things, like, what might... we knew that growing up there were some shootings. I mean, Columbine, I remember that. I was in middle school, and that when they talked a lot about ostracization and bullying and stuff like that.
And unfortunately, I feel like that was the moment that, like, put that in the spotlight, and then it just kind of encouraged more of that to happen. I feel like that instance was so talked about and almost glamorized, like in a certain, I don't know, like, they were on TV all the time. It was getting a lot of, publicity. And I don't know that necessarily helped.
Yeah. I think we've learned a lot over the last several decades about how we talk about, as a nation, we talk about those kinds of tragedies. A lot of people saying, let's focus on the people who lost their lives. They shouldn't have. But really trying to focus on that instead of, just splashing photos of a perpetrator of violence all over the television and giving people, especially because as we've learned with some of these others, they're like these white supremacists with manifestos and, you know, men who are quote unquote incels with videos where they've like video vlogs of them, you know, going ranting and raving about women not liking them and not dating them. And it's just like, we don't need, like, we know that's happening. We don't need to see it. Like, let's not just, I don't need to see somebody's manifesto splashed all over the TV and the internet.
So
I do think we've gone a long way, but now it's just become so commonplace that there was one the other day that we were both like, wait, what? How did this, what? We didn't hear about this one. Because there's so many.
Well, it wasn't in like the mainstream news, but
no, which is sad. That is a huge, I mean, it leads us to the conversation. So we were talking ultimately about bullying is what it got down to. And, you know, kind of how young people can get to a place of desperation where they don't feel like they have any other options than, you know, violence toward oneself or others. And that is not a justification for, I mean, we were having that conversation about bullying that I endured when I was growing up, and never once did any of that, did that ever cross my mind. And so that's not, don't want to justify that. But we were talking about it and just talked a lot about, like I shared more with you about kind of what that looked like for me and how it felt, and how it's carried into my adult life. And honestly, when I talk with clients and they share their own stories about how their relationship with food, with their bodies, with movement is really informed by bullying that they suffered at a young age because they were overweight. Just kind of how that stays with you. You know, I was talking with one client and they're like, I don't know if, you know, I was overweight as a kid, and all my stuff really, there's a lot that really roots back to that, and I don't know if you can understand it. And I just was very honest. I was like, no, I do. I had my own experience with it. I was an overweight teen and got bullied quite a bit for it, and it was really hard. And it is actually sort of one of the motivations for why I do what I do, because I wish that I had the information that I have now as an adult. I wish that someone like myself with compassion and kindness would have had a conversation with me and helped me get resources and learn more about how to eat safely for my body and find joy within movement. Because and when you're in middle school and high school, it's not, you don't really talk about those kinds of things.
Yeah, but like how much of that is out of your control at that age, right? You're not buying the groceries, you know, you're not making your meals usually at night.
Oh, yeah, no.
There's adults in this picture that are providing you with the types of food that are available for you or sending you to school with your lunch, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to look at how maybe the kid a lot of times at that age takes on the responsibility, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, what is being provided and what is being taught, you know, at that age? Because, like, I mean, I remember I was pretty much taking care of myself after school, and, you know, and, like, I wouldn't see my dad till, like, 8 p.m. at night or something. So, and it was like I went to the grocery store, you know, I had a list of things, you know, per what he wanted to eat or whatever. But it seems like when we were growing up, there was never the discussion. And if it did happen in your house, like, great, awesome. If you had parents that were like all about health and wellness and like gave you the right foods to eat. But a lot of the hard, you know, things that happen in kids' lives that are that age with like obesity and things like that, is like the environment
Yeah,
the
it
parent is
absolutely.
choosing to put the child in. Because I know you've talked about like living in an Italian household, like there's a lot of bread and pasta, right? I mean, there's just a lot of that type of food. And I just feel like at what point, I feel like it's probably getting better now, like our age, as parents and things, like being more aware of what our kids are eating. But yeah, I would feel like a lot of that responsibility should fall back on.
Oh, absolutely. And that's actually why I
adults.
shifted my focus from, I worked with teens, and I think that's so valuable because there's a lot of really helpful and empowering information that I think we can share with young people about, to arm them with facts, evidence-based information, to help them, especially at a high school level, where they're eventually going to go off to college, and to give them information to start learning how to make those decisions excuse me, for themselves when they do have that control. But then I shifted my focus. I was like, these young people don't have 100% control over what is going on, like what the food, they don't have the purchasing power and that kind of thing, which makes sense. And so working with families on how can we do this from a family level, and also doing it in a way that is not shaming.
Yeah, because there could be all
really
different types of situations that a family might be in to why they can't provide in a certain way.
Because I remember the first time that like my weight was discussed at our dinner table, and it was it's something that will stay with me forever. My parents were like, you need to be on a diet, and that's harmful. Like, I'm going to say that outright. I do not care what the body weight or BMI, which I won't even get into that, of a person is. It is so harmful to tell a person, especially a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 16-year-old, that like they need to go on a diet. And my sisters were all really thin, and I was not. And I just remember like feeling like I had to defend myself, and I was crying. It was very hurtful. And so like, I guess I would say that the bullying didn't always stop, because I would say then, I mean, I know they meant well, but it was such a
but they could have made their own changes, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was such an impactful conversation in a way that has stuck with me for my lifetime. And you have to, as some of my clients have shared with me, and we've kind of, I don't share a ton of my life with clients, but when someone is like, I don't know if you understand that, I want them to know, like, it is to validate and normalize, like, yes, and that shit stays with you. To this point, it stayed with me for my whole lifetime. So I don't know. I don't want to like blow smoke and be like, it gets better. You can heal from it and work through it and really, adjust, not let that. I've learned tools to help
and not have so much power over me. Right.
Yeah. But I still think of it, and that pain is still there, because it was very hurtful, and all of the hurtful words that my classmates and my peers said to me, that that my young self just was very impacted by it. It was really hard, and the only person really in my corner in it was my older sister, and I mean, even that she couldn't do. She could do as much as she could, but you're really alone in it. And so if we want to make healthy changes as a household, there's even a healthy, kind way to have that conversation where no person in the household gets called out.
Which is so beautiful about how you coach.
Because this is like, we do what we do with the knowledge that we have at the time. We learn what we're supposed to know when we learn it, and we have to let things go and accept. I mean, it's helpful. We don't have to. It's helpful to just be like, I didn't know any better at the time. Right. And then once I started to gain the knowledge, I slowly made adjustments. But there's a kind and loving way to have those conversations, and
to use different words and with talking about, like diet not using certain words like diet, like
Yeah.
being on a diet, because I know you don't like that word, like using that, like you say we're all on a diet.
Yeah,
it's
we
what
all
we
have
eat.
a diet.
Nobody should be like, oh, I'm on a diet. Like how to train ourselves away from that and looking at eating for just health, like
Yeah, to help our bodies function. I
yeah.
mean, the food that we put into our body, I feel like this is getting away from where we wanted to go, but this is fun.
Well, I know.
I feel like
yeah.
the food,
it's important to talk about.
Yeah, the food that we eat, the nutrients that we put into our body, and that is protein, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals. They help our body function in really incredible ways. I mean, protein alone is key in the process of so many different hormone functions.
But think about how much you got as a kid. Like if you were to break it all down and look at it now, would you say that all of your food groups were met?
No, yes, in ways, but not the quantities that I would need. I mean, that was back in the time when we had the food pyramid, and the base of the pyramid was bread. It was just like had 11 servings
like
of
Hamburger
grains.
Helper, and like if you guys, I mean, I can't tell you how many days a week it was like boxed meals.
So we didn't, but we had a lot of pasta, rice, potatoes.
Yeah.
But like that was back in the day when they had the food pyramid, and it was like quite literally have 11 servings of grains. That is so much grain. And there's a lot of stuff about the food pyramid and even what's evolved into my plate, and just like the food industry of our nation, and kind of how that informs it a little bit.
But there's a real crisis though going on in that.
Well, people with nutrition information, and that there's, I mean, the last episode that we talked about quick fixes, is that there is a quote unquote diet out there that claims to be the end all be all fix it for everyone and everything. And I see how enticing that is. And people they genuinely want to change their lives for the better, for lots of reasons, including, if we go back to the original thing, is that like bullying and shaming doesn't stop when you graduate from high school. It just evolves into adulthood. There are people who were bullies as young people, and they just stay bullies in the adult world, and they just do it in different ways. And
or we do it to ourselves.
We do it to ourselves.
Absolutely.
And we talk.
I mean, you got social media in your face every day with what is the standard.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you have folks who even go into their physician's office and they feel disregarded and shamed by their physician. And their very real medical issues are dismissed simply because of their weight. And it's just like, that is sickening in its own way. It's like, no one should be told, like, your pain. I mean, I've worked with female clients who have very real medical concerns going on, and they just don't know what else to do, because their doctor's like, you need to lose weight, you need to lose weight, you need to lose weight. And so then they come and they're like, I need to eat healthier. I want to figure out how to change my diet because I have to lose weight, because my doctor won't take me seriously. And these are people who are suffering from really bad, like, cramps and things like that. There are lots of different things, but it's heartbreaking and it's awful. And so when we see all these diets out there where it's like, it's understandable that someone would be like, I want to take this X medication, or I want to be on X diet because I need to lose this weight. And really what it is like, anyone who is out there being like, I have the fix for you, like, here's your problem and I'm going to solve it. I'm very cautious and I'm hesitant about that, because every body will respond to food differently. I mean, even in our own household, we eat the same things, and we have had to adjust what we have and how we prepare food, because your body digests it in a very different way than mine does. And so just because one person can eat something and they do fine, doesn't necessarily mean the next person can. And it really, to me, boils down to what is going to be sustainable. And so that's where we come into that information piece. It's like we have a crisis in this country in a lot of ways, but just like giving people access to accurate, relevant, easy to understand information is part of that, is part of the crisis.
And I want to bring that back around to the bullying part of
Okay.
if your parents had had more information about health and food and seeing someone like you, like seeing a health coach that's able to coach a family through something like that, but doing it in a more compassionate way towards you, could have made a difference and could have helped. Also given you some confidence maybe in your school life too, so there wasn't as much, that was hitting you in a bad way, with that.
Yeah, I do think so. So yes. And I know this because as my folks gained more information in my adult life, I saw them make adjustments to the way that they like prepared and had meals and stuff like that. I did see that. And I saw that in my siblings, and my older sister and I talk a lot about it. We talk about it often. And what's interesting is to see the way that to like live in my own experience with it, and then to witness how she's having her own experience, because we were both raised in the same environment.
Right.
We weren't being told the same things because the food we were eating growing up wasn't having the impact on her body that it was having on mine.
Right.
It was having an impact on her body in different ways because she has her own stuff. And we both, as adults, have had to learn new information and adapt our diets, just adjust. Our diets, when I say diets, like I just mean our dietary lifestyles. Yeah. We've had to adjust that to help our individual bodies thrive and heal and nourish them in similar but also really different ways, because we have different needs, and so that's been really fascinating. I can go back to that moment at the table at 12 years old and be like, they didn't understand. I was all alone. And when I reflect back on it, I'm like, they were hearing their own messages. And she and I have not had a conversation about, we did talk about it once, and she was like, I don't remember that, which that's not surprising at all based on, the chaos that was in our household. Quite often, you have a lot of stuff, things kind of, if it's not your thing, it kind of like falls through the cracks, but of your memory. Thankfully, sometimes we just don't remember things, but she was just like, I'm so sorry that does sound really painful. I can imagine, she was very compassionate about it. But she may not remember it, but she still had her own experience, and it may have informed her view of herself and food. And I'm not trying to, I analyze my sister or anything in that way, but as an adult, I get to see that kind of the way that informed each of us and how we then move forward with new information.
Yeah. I feel like this country doesn't set us up for success when it comes to health and wellness, and everything that is in the supermarket and, being advertised, and the insane amount of processed foods and sugars and things like that. It makes it really challenging, for people that haven't gotten the education around health and nutrition, to then start to help their children, teach their children what's right and what's not.
Well, and even the cost of it. And so you had mentioned
it's more expensive for...
well, it can be. I think that's also another thing that a lot of people are like, it's way more expensive, and it can be. And also, it's like we have to... I just wish that we would help people, as a nation, we could talk through certain things in more detail. I mean, you had mentioned, that was not even a complete thought. That was a lot of words to say nothing. It can be very expensive to eat healthier, more nutritious food. That is true. And there are also budget-friendly ways that we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a shame, in my personal and professional opinion, that we don't, as a nation, do more to help people afford healthier food, that we have food deserts. So people are living in areas that the nearest
Yeah, you had a
food-
client that it was just like a
gas station.
Yeah, gas station food.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
It's
crazy.
like that was the nearest store that had food to them. Otherwise, they had to drive an hour or more in either direction to get to a large grocery store. So we had to talk through a plan on, okay, how often do you go to the large grocery store? And that is not like, there's millions of people all over this country that's their experience. I mean, we were driving between here and my sister's, and we had to stop to use the bathroom. And I was like, I'm being like, babe, I need to look around here because this is exactly what my client was talking about. This is the only grocery store that is, these people have to go an hour back in the direction that we went or forward to where we're going to find a grocery store that has more than convenience foods.
Yeah.
And that is not okay. People should have access to affordable, nutritious food that isn't processed. They should get to have whole, real foods, and it makes me very, very upset. But what I wanted to say about all of this is, you had mentioned that growing up, so we cooked a lot of like scratch cooking, home cooked food in my household, and that sounds different from yours, as there was a lot of prepackaged foods. And so for me to say, yeah, there's a way to affordably cook healthy foods, it's because I grew up in a household where I could probably count each year on one hand the number of times that we had something that was prepackaged or that we dined out, because every meal was had at home. And it was made from scratch. So for me, it's like, okay, I know these things, I can do this, I know how to find the ingredients, but there are a lot of people who don't. And you're saying that, having grown up, I'm curious about your perspective as someone who grew up in a household that was a lot of packaged foods.
In what way? Like
any other ways, any way that you want to share. We started with gun violence, hit bullying, and now we're into it totally. This is what comes up for us. This is our conversations.
Yeah.
You had just said something about it, and I'm curious to hear more.
Going out to eat was only on our birthdays. That's when we got to go have like a nice steak meal or something like that. Otherwise, it was, we did eat at home, but it was just like your hamburger helper and like just some ground meat, throw it in, whatever, or the tuna helper. This like not great things. I mean, I did get a nice, on Sundays we went to my grandma's and had like a home cooked meal, like a really good meal. And then when it was just me and my dad living together, I did start to cook almost every night, just like real food. And he would encourage me to pick up recipes from my grandma and stuff like that, which was really annoying because I was super young and I didn't want to be cooking dinner. But yeah, I did start to eat healthier then, but I didn't eat lunch at that time. Like I would eat maybe like a Pop-Tart or something for breakfast, and then like some crackers at lunch, and don't know how I made it through soccer practice after school, and then to get home and, cook. But, yeah.
A lot of...
It was never like about too much of the bad stuff. It was just like not enough substance a lot of the times, or not. So
no.
I didn't have the weight gain problem. A lot of times it was like making sure that, I didn't have to really watch my weight until like later, but it was like I wasn't eating enough to sustain, to give me energy to get through my day. So, and I was very sleepy in class a lot. I know it's something we watched the other day. We watched a documentary about like food and kids having school lunch and things like that. How important it is for kids to get nutrition during the day to help with their academics and just was thinking like, wow, I wonder how my how school would have been different.
Yeah.
If I had somebody on me, or like somebody to help, a parent to help pack my lunch, or at least, you know, give me the tools to do that, or make sure that it was being done.
Yeah.
Because I think I didn't want to get school lunch because it was like on a lower income lunch thing. So I didn't want to, you know,
there's some
get in
with
line
that.
and be somebody that got like lower lunch. And I just was like, oh, I don't want this kind of like handout, you know. So I just ate from the vending machines usually, you know, which was not good at all.
Well, I mean, that's what that documentary we watched talked about, was that a lot of kids won't eat school lunch, free or reduced lunch, because of the stigma surrounding it, and a lot of people who qualify for it, for their kids to have that, won't fill out the paperwork because of the stigma around that, especially because it's like a brightly colored, they need to change that. Anyway, it was a really fascinating piece, and they talked about, you know, the benefit of universal free school lunch, and that, you know, during COVID as a nation, we did that. And one school district in particular really noticed the way they interviewed some of the instructors, that the way that the students' performance improved. And we paused it, and I was like, I can only imagine when we get hungry, we start to fall apart. We're adults, and we are like present in our bodies, and we recognize what's going on. And even we have moments.
So why are we not looking at that in children, you know? And then it's a whole thing that we could talk about, but
why we're just
we went on some rabbit trails there. Thanks for hanging in if you're still here, but we just I think we're
talking. Do you want to circle back?
We
to
could
it
circle
and close
back.
Out?
Yeah.
I think everybody just wants to be a part of something. They want to feel like they belong, and it's heartbreaking that a lot of kids are out there suffering in some really just very silently and in ways that they shouldn't have to.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing about your story. And I know that a lot of people, you know, that are adults now, you know, still carry things from the past. And so our four-legged child is letting us know that it's close to time for her little supper. So I think we should wrap it up so that she doesn't start barking at us. But
thanks for tuning in and listening to this. I hope it didn't sound too rambly, that it kind of followed some sort of path back to where we meant.
Yeah, I think it's important to speak on, and I think just to know that you can have somebody like Mary in your corner too, as a health coach, that can be compassionate and work with you if you're in that situation of needing that help and that guidance for nutrition, or knowing what's best for your family or your child, just to take those steps, because I think it starts at home, you know, and just to really encourage your child towards, you know, something better.
And there are fun ways to make nutritious foods and help kids. I know sometimes kids think like, oh, my kids are very picky, and that can be true. I mean, they can be. Their taste buds are very different, much more sensitive than ours. So there are also some fun ways to do it, and just there is nothing wrong with being concerned about your child's well-being, their health, their body weight, their longevity, their quality of life, their mental and emotional health, because the bullying aspect of being in a larger body, whether you are young or old, it's true. We live in a society that shames. I mean, fat shaming is a real thing, and there's a lot of ways it's very insidious in our culture. But it's absolutely okay to be concerned about those things, and there are ways to have that conversation where it doesn't have to leave a big scar on your child.
Yeah.
Because no one, I know that, I mean,
I don't think that's anyone's intention.
I don't think my parents intended to do that. Like, I don't think anyone intends to hurt their kids' feelings.
But I think if you have the opportunity, you know, to get educated on what would be best, best and right
for your family. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not going to be, there's not a script for every
No.
household. Like, it's not going to be like, this script is going to work in every household. Because you
Yeah.
mentioned cultural differences and family differences and individual people differences.
Or you got single parent homes or different situations. So I know everybody, people are doing the best they can, but we're here if you need support.
Yeah, we are.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Check our services out if you'd like to work with us one-on-one at wellwithinstudio.com. You can follow our podcast on the What Comes Up pod on YouTube and Spotify, and also our Well Within site at Well Within Studio. Ellie's acting up, so we're going to hop off here. You guys have a great day.
Take it easy.